place in the house.
Amen.
No strangers invited. Amen. All right. Let's go ahead and read what he's got here, Munger's got on the bedroom. All right. One day, when we were in the bedroom, he asked me about the picture next to my bed. Now, that's a picture of my girlfriend, I told Jesus. Though I knew my relationship with my girlfriend was a good one, I felt funny talking to him about it. She and I were struggling with some issues, and I didn't want to discuss them with him. I tried to change the subject. But Jesus must have known that what I was thinking. You are beginning to question my teaching on intimacy, aren't you? That intercourse is only for those who are joined in covenant of marriage. You're feeling I may be asking something unnatural, if not impossible for you. You're afraid my will on this will limit the full enjoyment of life and love. Isn't that true? Yes, I confess. Then listen carefully to what I'm saying, he continued. I forbid adultery and premarital sex, not because sex is bad, but because it is good. Beyond the physical ecstasy, it is a means of bonding two lives and deepening love. It has the creative power to bring human life into being. Sex is powerful. Used properly, sex has tremendous potential for good. Used improperly, it destroys the good. For this reason, God intends it to be expressed only within the commitment of a loving life partnership. There is far more to love than just sex. Let me help you in your relationship with the opposite sex. If you should fail and feel shame and guilt, know I still love you and will remain with you. Talk to me about it, acknowledge the wrong, take steps to avoid it happening again. Rely on my strength to keep you from falling and to lead you into a relationship of love and marriage where two truly become one. All righty. Let's see. To the bedroom. To sleep, perchance to dream, to read until I'm tired enough to go to sleep, to toss and turn with a sleepless night, to cough my head off and not sleep at all. The sweet chords of music falling from my wife's throat are driving me insane. More or less, she's snoring quite loudly. And so the bedroom, people have televisions, they read books, they have their electronics, just about everything goes on in the bedroom, including sleep when you can get it. And with as busy as we are and as troubled as we are a lot of times in this life, sometimes our sleep's not all that good, is it? How many gets a good 8 hours sleep every night? Raise your hand. Well, I'm glad for some of you. Yeah, 9 or 10. Yeah, I limited you, didn't I? He said he's got a picture of his girlfriend. I don't know if it's on a nightstand or on the dresser or what have you. And he says, my relationship with my girlfriend is a good one. What do you think Munger meant by a good relationship with her? What do you think he meant by that? That she doesn't nag me?
They don't fight.
They don't fight? What else? We like the same things. We dislike the same things. We like going to the same places. We like the same music. We like the same food.
Somebody's lying.
That's right. Yeah. Now, it's not always that everything is exactly the same that makes you have a bad relationship. Sometimes those differences actually enhance the relationship because they get you to think and to maybe discuss things a little bit better. What is the number one biggest thing that husbands and wives don't do?
Talk.
Who said that? How dare you? right, men, is that true? Raise your hands.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Colin. I appreciate it. And you lied, didn't you?
Not me.
I told my wife one time, when we get in the car, she wanted to go somewhere. She said, well, what's the matter? What are you thinking? I said, nothing. I'm not thinking anything. Is it possible not to think anything?
No.
Yes, it is, man. It's possible not to think anything. My mind just wanders from one thing to another. Yeah, a lot of times I'm not thinking. She said, well, you must be mad, you're not talking. I said, if you keep asking me questions like that, I'll get mad. So I'm not mad now, but keep it up, I will be. Yeah, that's communication. I said, that's what you want, we're there, we're talking. But, men don't talk as much as women. They don't have as much to say. Now, that's a rule of thumb, right? Because there are some men that talk more than women. And what do you mean? Oh, you just agree with me?
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
Okay.
There's some.
Yeah, some. Right, a few. No, it's not the majority of us. So, to have a good relationship doesn't mean that everything is exactly the same with each one. Some people that like to talk, like my wife, and I like to listen. So we get along well together like that, right? So, and it's the same thing with anything. She doesn't like me.
Your wife you can hear.
What'd you say? So, if you like the same things, that's fantastic. If you don't like the same things, it's not a big deal. Same thing comes to relationship and intimacy. Not that this is a premarital course or anything like that, but you think about what he said, we have a good relationship. So he was including, no doubt, the sex part of it. He said that the picture of his girlfriend, I felt funny talking to him about it. She and I were struggling with some issues, no doubt sexual, and I didn't want to discuss them with him. I tried to change the subject. Why would anyone feel funny about talking to Jesus about the bedroom? The context of the study. Why would anybody feel comfortable?
Because they were in sin.
Because they were in sin, yes,
It was
absolutely.
bothered us, Holy Spirit was convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
he felt funny about, he was doing wrong, but it's easier just to hide it and say, oh, I'm not doing it. But he
Right.
really was.
Right.
So yeah, talking to the Lord and the Savior, yeah, it's definitely would have been uncomfortable.
Okay, and how would we relate that spiritually now? In prayer, you know, this comes across our mind. We're praying, and all of a sudden your girlfriend, your boyfriend comes into your mind, and you've not been faithful like you should be to Christ, and you get stuck on that, and for a little while you feel like God's dealing with you in it, and you do your best to change the subject, to get off of it, right? You don't want that condemnation or conviction because it's uncomfortable. But it doesn't matter whether it's that or anything else, whether it's a lie, if it's stealing, whatever it is, if God deals with you and in prayer time, and how many would say that from time to time God does deal with you in prayer time?
Yeah.
Because you're drawing it to Him in what? A spiritual way, right? So you open the doors of spirituality, and so when you're praying, He will deal with you. God deals with me a lot in my time of prayer. It makes me think about things. And as I'm praying about different things, He brings things to my mind and deals with me in that way. It may be a scripture, it may be just a conscious thought that the Lord gives me somehow or another, though. But I know it's God and Him dealing with me because I've opened myself to spiritual things. On a side note, whenever the people play with Ouija boards and stuff like that, what are they doing? They're also opening themselves up to spiritual things, but it's darkness. And people don't believe that the devil is able to get through in those things. But you open a line of communication that's evil, calling for the dead, or looking at a tarot card, or playing with a Ouija board. All of those things open you to spiritual darkness, and it gives the devil an opportunity to jump in. So what you have on your mind spiritually will either feed you and strengthen you, or it'll empty you and destroy you. So yeah, we felt funny about the bedroom because there's conviction there. We know that's where Munger is leading in his discussion. All right. When your parents want to discuss sex with their children, is it awkward?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is, right? We expect them to get it from where?
School.
The playground, right? Here's your instruction, the playground, or from a school buddy, or from a hygiene movie in school, or what have you. But if more parents, and I'm not throwing this at anybody if you've never done it, if more parents would take the opportunity to talk to their children, the men to the boys, the mom to the daughters, there would be less trouble with it in the world. They would have a better understanding first off, and not have some wild, unbelievable expectation, all right? So, how many verses in the Bible can you quote me that have to do with intimacy? Or that you can give me some line in? Now, I know you weren't prepared for that, but I am. So let's read them. All right? You can write these down in your book or just go over them later. One of the best ones, I think, that is fantastic is in Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 4. Marriage is honorable in all, to all participants, the husband and the wife. By the way, when we talk about marriage, this book was written before the sexual revolution of this decade. I'm not seeing too good. First edition, 1954. So it's had revisions since then. But you think that's pretty old, right? When all of these other things that were wrong were still done, people were still doing them, but they didn't boast of them. And they kept it between them, okay? Kept it in darkness. All right, Hebrews 13:4. Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. But oh, she sneezed? God bless you. But whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. Hebrews 13:4. Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. But whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. All right, so it's pretty simple, right? The marriage bed, what goes on between a man and a woman in the bonds of matrimony, in their intimacy is between them. It's not anybody else's business. Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 through 5. And there came, and you'll not, I'm sure you'll be able to see to make the connection here. And there came out one of the seven angels, which had seven vials, and talked with me, saying, Come unto me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now, in this particular instance, the great whore is the unrighteous system of the Antichrist and the false prophet is morally evil. It's wicked. That's the spiritual connection. Has nothing to do with sex, but the connection overlaps with it for us. That sits upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness. I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and a woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a gold cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, the abomination of the earth. Now, while that's spiritually to the Antichrist kingdom at the end in the book of Revelation, it applies to us. These are things that God considers wicked and evil. And He's making that connection with the way that the world is going to be in the tribulation period. And so all of these things are condemned. They're down. And so that's the idea that we've got there in Revelation 17. All right, 1 Corinthians 6 and 13. Meats for the belly, and belly for the meats, but God will destroy both it and them. Now the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And so when we commit fornication, we actually sin against God. We sin against His nature, because we are created in the image and likeness of God. Hebrews 12:16, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. So Esau, when he sold his birthright, the writer of Hebrews connects him with a fornicator or a profane person, puts him in that same light. So what is worse? I mentioned Sunday night in preaching about homosexuality or a couple that are shacked up together. What's worse? They're both sins. One has a little bit worse of a connection to society, which would be homosexuality, and the other one just tears down the fabric of marriage. Because homosexuals and lesbians can get marriage licenses in our country today in practically every state. Not all of them, but practically all of them. And so he's relating that when Esau profaned his birthright, he's just as bad as a fornicator or a profane person. 1 Corinthians 7:2, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, immoral sexual relation, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. 1 Corinthians 5:1, it is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. Ephesians 5:5, for this ye know that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater hath any inheritance in the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Christ and of God. Colossians 3:5, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, inappropriate, profane ways of intimacy, evil concupiscence, that's unlicensed immorality, and covetousness, which is idolatry. All right? So those are the things that I thought of and I did a little quick study on, of how many that there are that God puts in a bad light outside of the marriage bed. And in fact, the only time that God favors intimacy between a man and a woman is inside the holy bonds of matrimony. Now, is God limiting us? I think he makes mention of the way that Jesus feels about that. He says in the last part of that, let's see. But Jesus must have known what I was thinking. You're beginning to question my teaching on sex, aren't you? That intercourse is only for those who are joining covenant of marriage. Now, the way that Munger's writing this, he takes for granted that a Christian should know what's expected of them if they're not married. Just as God would expect of us if we were married, right? The proper way to treat one another in life. For male and female. All right? The intercourse is only for those who are joined in the covenant of marriage. You're feeling I may be asking something unnatural, if not impossible for you. All right? Now, I'm not quite sure where he comes up with that, other than the fact that a lot of people say they use this phrase, and you've heard this phrase on different things. I couldn't help it. Right? And so, can you help it? Is it possible for a Christian not to do things, intimacy with outside of marriage? Is it possible?
Yes, but not in their own power.
It's not in our own power, because the flesh is strong, right? And we'll believe what the heart tells the mind a lot of times when emotion is flying crazy. And so Jesus doesn't ask us to do something that we can't do. He gives us the power to do what we need to do, to overcome. And the best way I know not to do what intimacy is wrong is how?
Stay out of the situation.
Stay out of the situation. Don't get in a place where there's no accountability, right? So be in a place where that you're going to be open, out in the public, or involved. And this is good for those that are courting and dating, but it's also good for husbands and wives. I don't know how many people fall in the workplace. Two people that are not married work side by side, get kind of common and familiar. Next thing you know, they've got a little bit stupid. So it is true. God can help us. All right. He says then, Munger does, you're afraid my will on this will limit the full enjoyment of life and love. Isn't that true? Yes, I confess. And I would agree that a lot of people think that limits their happiness. It doesn't. It limits your lust. Right? It limits that ability to do something that you know your spirit inside of you is going to correct you. Now, it does say some things in here that I'm going to disagree with, and you probably would disagree as well. All right? Then listen carefully to what I'm going to say. I forbid adultery, premarital sex, not because sex is bad, but because it's good. I think we'd all agree with that. That's what God intended for the husband and the wife, for a way to be one and to be intimate. Beyond the physical ecstasy, it is the means of bonding two lives and deepening love. I believe that as well. It has the creative power to bring human life into being. In fact, that's the way that God determined that we're going to have the human race continue, that we have babies, right? Sex is powerful. Used properly, sex has tremendous potential for good. Used improperly, it destroys the good. All right, how does it destroy the good? I think we need to talk just a little bit on this. How does it destroy that which is good? Any ideas? They've done studies. I'll go ahead and tell you what I've read. This is a long time ago. Huh?
Talking about the compare, right?
What?
How it destroys the good, right? Because God designed it for a husband and a wife, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the only two people that are together, there's no other comparison.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
Right.
But people that have done that in the past, you know, that hurts the relationship with their wife.
Right.
What God intended.
Right. Because you have knowledge that God intended you not to have,
Right.
other than with your mate. All right, we take that a little bit further. They've done studies to show that people that are involved in a lot of sexual activity before they're married don't enjoy it so much when they get married, because they've got all these expectations and ideas in their mind that they've already destroyed intimacy with their loved one, with their husband or their wife. And people that are addicted to pornography, and it's like different ones have said that when you get addicted to pornography, it actually becomes an addiction in your mind that is like gambling or like smoking or anything like that. It has an overpowering ability to bring you down, and it's not a one-time, well, I messed up one time. They've done studies, more often that you're involved in it, the more you're preoccupied by it, the more likely you are to fall again. And that's just the studies, the plain facts of what they've done. So is intimacy good in marriage? In fact, it's the best. It's what God intended, without any outside obligation or wild fantasies or ideas. And the same thing with pornography or the films and things that people watch to get off on. So God intended it to be good. The devil intended it to be bad, to mess with you. All right. For this reason, God intends it to be expressed only within the commitment of a loving life partnership. There is far more to love than just sex, and I would agree with that. Hugging, being close, holding hands, kiss on the cheek to your loved one, kiss on the lips, your mouth, throwing the tongue at them, whatever. You know, when you are in relationship with somebody, you're able to be in relationship with them, and little things mean a great deal. It's not necessarily all the time the sex. I remember Theodore and Bernice one time, me and Deb were in Oak Ridge going to Walmart, and they were coming out of Walmart, and they were both holding hands. It was pretty neat to see that real old couple holding hands. And there was still intimacy between them, and it was out in public. That showed the intimacy that they had was that they were holding one another's hands, and that was special. That's not because one of them was getting ready to fall either. You know, they weren't stumbling.
They really like each other.
They really liked each other. In fact, one time I feel I got a kick out of it. He said, she's not perfect, but she's close enough for me.
Aw.
So, that's cool. All right. Let me help you in your relationship with the opposite sex. If you should fail and feel shame and guilt, know I still love you and will remain with you. I believe that Jesus still loves you. Will he remain with you? Hard question.
He'll be there when you're ready to ask forgiveness, so he's not really left you, but he will not shower you with blessings or be there until you clear it up.
Right, right. What happens when we do any sin?
Separates us.
Hurts your relationship with him.
We hurt our relationship with him. To what degree?
Depends on how.
In the context of what Munger is saying, if you fail and have sexual relationships, know that I still love you and I will not leave you, or I am with you. How do you say it? I still love you and will remain with you.
Brother Rick, what relationship does light have with darkness? Well, that's what the Word of God said.
Mm-hmm.
What relationship does it have?
Yeah.
So it separates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it hurts our fellowship. It separates us, right?
Exactly.
What else? Who moved? We moved, right?
Right.
God didn't go nowhere, but we certainly did.
Right.
We moved away from it. And it's kind of like the fireplace, and it's real good and hot, and all of a sudden there's a pop in the wood. It gets to a hot place of steam. The wood separates and throws an amber on the hearth. That amber now is away from the main fire, and what happens to it? It grows out or goes cold, right? It starts to lose its fire. Same thing with us. When we have sin in our life, unconfessed sin, we start to grow cold on God. To the point that if we don't get it fixed, if we don't have an advocate with the Father, it'll actually separate your relationship with Him. You'll be not in grace, but in disgrace. Absolutely. All right, so I want to make sure we understood that. All right, he said, talk to me about it, acknowledge the wrong, take steps to avoid it happening again, rely on my strength to keep you from falling, and lead you in a relationship of love and marriage where two truly become one in me. And that's an absolute. Yes, talk to Jesus about it. You can be plain and blunt with Him. You may not be able to feel comfortable talking to a preacher or a marriage counselor or your mom or your dad, but you can talk to God about anything. And here's the thing that I want to stress. No matter how troubled you are about intimacy, you can be honest with Him. You might tell a friend or something like that, and they would laugh or make fun of you. God, if you're serious and you're really intent, and you need His touch and understanding, He's going to give you guidance and direction in it. You can count on God doing what His Word says. And He has grace for whatever your need is. He has the strength for whatever our need is. So, yeah, we can overcome. We can be faithful. I know of somebody that has been in a relationship for probably 3 years. They're going to get married this next year, and both of them are still pure. And when we were at Oak Grove, we did a marriage can wait, or sex can wait. I can't remember exactly how we titled it. Can wait until marriage class with the youth. And a lot of the youth kept it. And a number of years later, someone came to me and they said, what do you want to do? We gave them some kind of a certificate or something. And I can't remember just exactly now what it was. They came to me and said, what should I do with this? I've still got it. And I said, I'm proud of you. And just keep on keeping on, I can tell you. No, I said, hold on to it. But yeah, it's possible, but it takes God help. It's not easy within ourselves because hormones go crazy when you're young and you're excited and you're out there and you got all these things and everybody else is doing it. I mean, they're talking about kids as young as 12 and 13 in elementary school that are having regular intimacy. And so, yeah, it's possible, but it takes God help and His strength. And a lot of kids come from families where they're already defeated. They got 2 strikes against them, and they're not getting no support, not getting no help. And so we certainly need to pray for all of ours, right? All of our grandchildren, all of our everybody that we know, and our relationships and our families, that we would pray for them and pray that the Lord would give them the strength and guidance that we need. That's part of when the boys were growing up, I'd stop outside their bedroom before I went to bed at night, and I'd pray for them. You know, and Gary's mentioned a number of times he'd pray for Gary, a different one. I'm sure a number of folks have stopped by their bed or prayed with their child when they were putting them to bed. Praying with them and praying that God would give them strength, give them courage to stay faithful to Him in anything. And what I've always prayed for my children, my grandchildren, still pray today, is Lord, give them the right person in their life that's going to bless them and help them that you want, not what they want. Because sometimes we get a little bit shallow, don't we? We look for looks. We look for looks, don't we? Well, the best looking person you know in 50 years is going to be as ugly as a shoe. Or at least they're not going to be as pretty as they want to be. Right? Things change. Time changes. But love should remain, and it should grow stronger all the time. Be plain and blunt with Jesus, because He already knows your thoughts and the intents of your heart. He knows what's going on in your life. All right. And He can help you to overcome. All right. Anyone got anything you want to add? Any thoughts? A touchy subject, isn't it? Would you agree? It's a little uncomfortable in our congregation, and we know what we're talking about. No doubt whenever Munger went through that part of the thing, he had to think hard and long. Right? He had to think hard and long. How am I going to express this in a way that I can say this in some kind of a study where people will understand and be plain enough that they can get the message. My closing thought is simple, is real simple. Stay close to Jesus and keep doing the things you know you should do, and you'll never have any problem that you can't overcome when it comes to relationship, when it comes to marriage or dating or anything like that. And I tell people, I said, if you date somebody, make sure, the boys and girls, when you date somebody, make sure that they love the Lord, that they're the same as you are. And don't think I'm going to change them, because you're not. You're not going to change them. In fact, the majority of evidence lays the other side. You change for them. Whether you're a boy or a girl, you change for them. And so don't think you're going to change anybody. Stay close to God, and don't put yourself in a situation where that you're going to be tempted above what you're able to handle, because God will make a way of escape if you'll let Him. Amen. All right, anyone else, any thoughts? All right, what's next?
What a mess.
What a mess the closet's in. Do you know that covers almost 3 pages? That's one of the longest studies in the book.
Not a jerk in that closet.
Yeah.
If you have things in the closet you don't want to know about, no skeletons. Huh?
He already knows.
He knows.
You can't hide nothing from him.
You can't hide nothing.
That's sort of like that study, that's what I thought. Munger was like, well, I'm hiding my girlfriend and my relationship with him, but he already knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was uncomfortable when he brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, the other thing is, I think about, because he knew it, and he knew he didn't want to have the Lord's input on it. It's easier.
Because he was comfortable where he was at.
Yeah, when you're not challenged, it's easier to keep doing something that's wrong.
Sure.
When you're not challenged, you know, but when you're challenged, you come to a crisis of faith, don't you? You have to do something. And that's, I think, where he was going with it. All right, good stuff.
It's like when you